Welcome to My Creative Corner 3, a podcast about my quilting journey and life in a northern town. Show notes can be found at mycreativecorner3.wordpress.com. Please leave a comment and we can continue the conversation online. My name is Vicki. Welcome to the podcast. Well, October is upon us. I cannot believe that September flew by so fast. We had a really nice stretch of good weather, but the good weather turned to super hot weather, and now we're back down to seasonally temperate weather. We have, 60-degree weather in the daytime, frost in the evening, which will bring on the fall colors to hit their peak here soon. It got delayed with the heat wave, and really all is quite well. It's interesting this time of year as the seasons change how cyclical things are. My New Year's plans have been made because September is my new year. It seems to have always corresponded with that new school year. And so we started a blog hop called Peace and Quilt Blog Hop, or Peace and Quilt Hop Along is the hashtag on Instagram. And this will mark the halfway point in the blog hop. And I'm really excited about it because the next 2 weeks we'll be discussing more on free motion quilting. The quilt top is finished. I'm finalizing my design ideas. I'm going to wrap up what customer quilt that I have on the frame now and then start quilting grid work. I have not fully made a plan. I never have a finalized decision on a quilt until I load it and I start quilting. And then usually the first row, whatever happens, happens. And that means that's what we're doing with the quilt. I'm thinking about doing, I think it's called Castles and Curls. It's a pretty well-known free motion quilting motif. It's called castles because there's like a squiggly line with a curl and then a squiggly line. It's like a tiny little switchback and a curl. I'm going to fill the larger part of grid work, I think, with that and then do a sharp stipple in the smaller square of grid work, which is the quilt from the book Peace and Quilt with Free Cuts by Krista Watson that I am making from Modern Marks material. And all of the information about the blog hop and where you can purchase the fabric and the book will be in my show notes. So that's coming right along. I worked really hard this week on getting things prepared for this post. And then, I've been doing a lot of putting my podcast on YouTube. Now, people are like, well, why would you put an audio podcast on YouTube? Well, there are lots of reasons for it, but it reaches a different group of people who like to listen, and it will have a couple of photos that were featured in show notes, and I'm linking to the blog with the show notes. So it gives people a different avenue to find the podcast. But that's been a little bit of work too. Not difficult, but I had to figure a few things out, and I'm almost caught up to present of having all of those podcasts listed. So today officially starts season 2 of the podcast, my second year. And expect a few little changes in the show notes and how I'll be writing them up with links. And I also finally got a free pattern written in honor of this 1 year. I wanted to have it done for the 1 year podcast anniversary, but I am a little bit late. It's done in time for the kickoff to the second year. So if you go to show notes, there will be a link at the top of the blog, though, currently. You can find it there, too, where it says free patterns and tutorials. So thank you, all for listening for the last year. And it is a free pattern called postcards. No, they're real postcards. It's not just a quilt block. It's how to make postcards that are tiny little pieced cards, and you fuse them onto a Pellon fusible foam that's used. So all the directions are there. And I have the blessing of being able to buy a secondhand serger. So I like to serge the edges to give it a nice flat look. Now, some tips that I want to talk about is when doing postcards, you really need to research your postmaster in your country, the rules. 4x6 in the United States is a standard postcard size. Also, keep it flat. Don't get thick, squishy cards. You want them to be stiff. And I do not put any embellishment on the piecing. No buttons, no decorative stitching that's hand done with that can catch in a machine. I keep it pieced, and I like doing improvisationally pieced ones too. Now, what's super fun about the postcards, you can use little tiny crumb or string pieces, and I can use block elements that were done tiny little pieces, or maybe quilt blocks that have some terrible mistakes in them that you want to cut down and use a portion of it. It's all up to you. I had a couple tiny little flying geese. I had a Tula Pink city sampler block that I cut to the wrong size when I trimmed it down. You know, I had some improvisationally pieced ideas, but the best idea I had was putting some of my saved selvage edges for some of the little pieces on there. So there'll be pictures of the last round of blocks, and I'll go through and I'll link to the first round of blocks of postcards that I did. And they're just so much fun. And it's an instant gratification project that is just really so much fun. It's piecing, it's quilting, it's done. I mean, you can spend as little as 5 or 10 minutes and have your little top pieced and fused. I usually save them all up at the end and then get my serger out and just serge all the ends in a couple of minutes. So that has been super fun. And I am really catching up on quilt tops and trying to get them quilted for customers and myself. So I haven't been jumping into my winter idea of piecing. I've been making a strategic plan for the couple projects that I want to do, and several of them are going to be mini type quilts. I think I want to have a mini quilt collection on a wall for a graphic statement in my dining room. So that will start this winter. I have a few little mini pieces already, and that will be a nice start to having a nice, just different sized quilts in all different colors. It's going to be bright and an explosion of little quilts. And I just think they look cool. There's something very appealing about miniatures for me. Little fairy gardens and magical miniature things, mushrooms and small things, little tiny quilts. I like working with 6-inch blocks. So that kind of stuff is really, really in my wheelhouse. Trying to avoid making any queen size quilts, because the problem is the blocks and getting the top done is really only half of the battle. My problem is getting enough backing fabric, because it takes usually about 10 yards, as well as the batting and and it takes a long time to quilt them. It really does. Especially if you want to do any custom or graffiti styled types of quilting on it. So that has been really just long arming, trying to set up a daily grind of doing it. And I say grind is because sometimes it's hard when you're on a big quilt and it's the same thing over and over, or same elements, and you're like halfway through and you want it to be done, but it's not, and you got a lot of ways to go. So I adopt a strategy that is really one stitch, one row at a time. It is no different than the strategy that I make blocks by. It's block by block. One stitch, one unit, put the units together, and then you make the block. Then you make your blocks, you make your rows, you make your rows, you make the quilt. I find that this works so much better for me than doing tons of pre-cutting for blocks. Doesn't work. And in long arming, I don't want to spend a lot of time like marking and messing around with prep work. I usually jump right into it. That's why I like doing free motion quilting. Now I will say this week I used the little handy quilter ruler that at the AQS show in August. It's about 6 inches. It is the absolute perfect size for my hand, and it makes ruler work go fast. That big ruler I have will work for other projects, and it has a little round end on it. And that's okay. But what I wanted was a little ruler where I could manipulate it quickly to guide my machine through a bunch of straight lines. I am really excited because I want to try a couple of new stitches on upcoming customer quilts or samples for the local quilt shop. My local quilt shop, I'm going to give a shout out, is to Delphine's Quilt Shop, which is literally 4 houses from my house, and I have to be very careful not to visit there too much, or I would owe my entire paycheck to the local quilt shop. They have a fabulous array of different types of fabrics, from batiks to modern to some other really amazing lines that have come out, and they have a nice collection of ombre fabrics, which I am fabulously in love with and use quite often, as well as the other favorites of mine, which are solid and solid reading fabrics. One day, I will try to get to some of the groups that they have, or sewing, sit and sew kinds of things, but unfortunately all that happens now during the day. I guess I'll have to try to start my own group on a Saturday or a weeknight when us 9-to-5ers who work can't attend. But, we'll work it all out. I'm hoping to get a class going, and an exciting news is that I have my Arrows quilt for a sample, because she has these Shibori 2 line by Moda in pre-cuts. And if you remember, in August, my Moda Bake Shop post was accepted and published for Arrows. And on the middle of November, the plan is that I will be able to do a demonstration of the pattern, how to make the block, show my quilt, and talk all things quilting and free motion quilting. And hopefully someone will come and they will want to see it. Our town is full of lots of quilters, but it's also a tourist town, and Saturdays can be busy. We'll see. If one person comes, I'll be very excited, but it will give me a chance to practice talking in public and demonstrating a simple block. So if you want to look at the block and go ahead and make an Arrows quilt, Moda Bake Shop, and there is a link on my website or blog, and I will put that in the show notes too. I've really been working on keeping my body and mind relaxed, because I've been doing a lot of long arming. So I thought I would talk about, as a person who spends a lot of time at a machine, how do I do that? And I'm not achieved expertise on this. It is a work in progress. Part of it is I need to approach sewing, I need to approach quilting with a calm demeanor. I need to clear my mind of a million things going through it and focus. If I don't, I make a lot of mistakes. So part of that is practicing being in the moment. not letting my mind be cluttered with worries of the day or timetables or money problems. Who is having money problems? But, bills that come due or letters I need to get out, blog posts I need to make, things that are going on at work or troubles in any family. You have problems that people have from time to time. And, all that can cloud your mind into one big ball of energy that can really destroy what you're doing. I really like to approach quilting as a meditative relaxation process. If I walk into it feeling frustrated and upset because of what happened in the day, then it's not going to be this meditative, relaxing process. And that's why I like to quilt. Actually, when I get at the long arm, I can get so zen, as what I've been told it is, and into the moment and watching the patterns develop. I can lose track. In fact, I will do sometimes a 10 or 15 minute, if I have that much time, sometimes only 5 minute, like a mini relaxation meditative process where I might even turn on white noise music. And I found a great website, which is a binaural beats machine, a wave machine. And I will put that link. It has a app for my phone, and I'm going to see if I can find the actual name of it here so that you guys can look for it. But I like that kind of thing. And podcasts are pretty good because they're not super distracting, but if the person can be too chitty-chatty or hyper, like some people are listening to are they're upbeat and exciting, but not when I want to quilt. So it's called Mind Noise app, and it is a generator, and it has like some music overlays that you can put on and set frequencies. I have a tinnitus in my middle ear, which goes with my middle ear problem, which constantly makes noises, and with the sound of the machines and other music, it can get too much stimulation. So I will put something like that on, 3-second inhale in, I hold, and then I exhale, and I do this several times. And I will check my body for tension. Now, as a quilter and someone who does a lot of machine quilting, I have a tendency to have very rounded shoulders and carry all my stress and muscle problems in my neck and shoulders. And since I had surgery was in my throat area, my neck has been very problematic, as well as playing violin for a long time. So I really do a lot of shoulder rolling, stretching my neck, and you may want to consult with a physical therapist or your doctor about some appropriate neck stretches, but I've had a few prescribed for me and I do them. I also try to have really good posture, which I know I don't, and I have to really, really concentrate on that. Computer work, I'm sitting at a desk, also does the same thing. Now, as a healthcare person, I do know also that we cannot keep our bodies still for hours and hours. It is very unhealthy for us. We need to get up for the health of our heart and blood pumping, and we don't want it pooling. You don't want to get a blood clot. You can't stand for a really long time without moving. You need to stop what you're doing. I have to, about once an hour, move around. I will walk around my house. I purposefully put things across the room. I don't keep it as a workstation that is highly efficient so I don't have to get up. That would be terrible. I'm really working on burning calories and steps, so it's a twofold purpose for doing it. But I sincerely think that we need to take a break every hour, do more stretching, walk around, sit down. Sometimes my long arm is actually at the base, the end of my bed. So sometimes I will lay down and do light stretches on the bed. Don't fall asleep, but do things like, stretching my back, lifting my knees to my chest while I'm laying down, doing some other stretching and breathing, and then get up and walk around. Sometimes I'll even like come down because my long arm's on the second floor, come downstairs, do laundry, and then go back up. Same with my sitting at a sewing machine. Take a lot of breaks. And then when I find myself getting really tense or thinking that I got to hurry up, I got to get more done, when that hamster on the wheel starts running of hurry, got to get it done. I'm not going to get anything accomplished. My goals are not going to be met today. My time is running out. I stop. I will stop what I'm doing and find something else to do. When those kinds of things start, then it becomes not fun anymore. It doesn't become creatively inspired anymore. I start becoming driven of production and time and getting things done. So then sometimes I'll just take a break, get a cup of tea, go find another creative project to do, like knit for a while, and a lot of times I'm sewing in the morning or I'm quilting in the morning, and I'll just go get ready for work and then come back to it. I really do much better. One row on the long arm and then I'm done. Come back to it because that's about an hour. By the time I get everything done, a big quilt, a row can be an hour. Or a block, but usually my attention span and my temperament is about an hour. And many times I can do one row, one block, one section of a block in less time, and then I will step away. When I am pressed for time, I really do break things up into 15 and 30-minute increments, and I'm always prepped for the next day. I know when I'm done with this quilt, I'm going to do grid work. Grid work is already pressed and it's laid out. Backing has to get ready. So when I get close to the end of this quilt, I will do that. I have projects planned for sewing. I'm working on the postcards right now. When I'm done with the postcards, I'm going to work on a half square triangle quilt. I have the fabric in a stack, and I may, as I walk through my fabric room, if the mouse that I saw in there is trapped and gone, I will spend more time dilly-dallying in there. And I will just kind of poke through my solids and poke through my collection. And I let it sit and what I call marinate for a while. I'm looking at my fabric pull and thinking about it. And then I have the pattern already ready. It was something I saw online and they had a free pattern with it. So that's already done. And I already have a couple other projects planned. It's already in the works. My one row at a time when I'm doing handwork, I have it by my chair. I knit a row at a time, or I will do a section of binding when I'm doing that kind of handwork. So overall, that's how I approach my work process. You really have to stay in the moment and practice mindfulness. Never forget these things to focus on while you're working. Looking at the fabric, I really look at the color and work with things I absolutely love and appreciate how beautiful the color is, the fabric is. What does it feel like? What does the iron sound like in the steam? And just really get into the moment of quilting. My quilt sewing area is in and my long arming actually are both in some of the best rooms of the house for lighting. The color of the room, the beautiful sunlight streaming in, the fabric, the thread, the sounds of the machine, just the feeling of my breath going in and out and being totally relaxed and almost at one with the process. And that's when my mind will go into what a lot of people call this flow state of thinking and creative ideas come. So try that to help you stay motivated keep your body relaxed and not injured, and totally enjoying the process of quilting. I would like to ask everyone to sign up for my newsletter. If you want to get a copy of the free patterns sent to you in your inbox, I put them in my newsletter, and it will be delivered right to you, and you'll never miss one. So you can go to show notes, and there will be a link to that. You can also help me out a lot by giving me a review for this podcast on iTunes or on YouTube. And as always, I do long arm quilting for other people, and you can certainly inquire about that. And I would like everyone to think about leaving a comment on the blog so we can continue the conversation online. Quilt on, everyone.